Another big part of the infrastructure bill is going to be how you pay about it. Because remember, the only things that are free are wars. Everything else has to be paid for. And here is the latest on what sort of tax increases the Democrats are considering and which they are not to pay for the reconciliation bill. So according to the New York Times, facing the delicate politics of a narrowly divided Congress, which is just another way of saying having to deal with Manchin, Sinema, Tester, and a few others potentially, senior House Democrats opted to be more mindful of moderate concerns in their party than of its progressive ambitions. They focused on traditional ways of raising revenue by raising tax rates on income rather than targeting wealth itself. So look, for a lot of regular people, that doesn't necessarily make a lot of sense. What's the big difference between those two things? But there is a big difference, and we're gonna get into it. The bill dispenses with measures floated by the White House and Senate Democrats to tax wealth or to close off avenues that the super rich have exploited to pass on a lifetime of gains to their heirs tax-free. So how does this work out? Well, the richest of the rich don't actually earn much income. Like for you and I, our income is our wealth. That's what we have and we spend it to survive. But for instance, Jeff Bezos, his salary was $81,840 in 2020. So I don't really care how much you jack up the surtax on his income. It's not gonna get much. That's not how he makes money. His vast fortune in stocks, bonds, real estate, and other assets growing largely untaxed each year, as we've been talking about. There was that big analysis by the Center for Public Integrity earlier this year. That's how he makes money. And there have been people who've been talking about a wealth tax that would affect that sort of way of building wealth over time. But as of right now, Nina, that is not what the Democrats are considering. It's very much just focused on their yearly income.
Tax. Well, I know we're gonna get into the Congresswoman Ocasio-Cortez's dress. That just do what that dress said. Let's just go ahead and tax the wealthy. They need to tax. They need to tax the wealthy. We need a wealth tax in this country far too often, and not just the Bezos. I mean, even the not just, it's not just the one. It's the less than 1% that we're really talking about here, who have gained tremendously during this pandemic. But meanwhile, in the highways and byways all across this country, the people who are among the poor, the working poor, and the barely middle class continue to suffer, continue to only barely get by. And as a nation, we continue to be skittish, and I'm using we loosely, but yes, the members of the Congress, and when I say the Congress, I mean both houses of the Congress, not all, because some do have the courage to say that we must tax the wealth of the wealthiest people in this country who are not paying anything in federal taxes. Their corporations are not paying a dime in federal taxes. They are, in fact, I mean, starving. Because again, going back to my original premise, government is designed for us to do collectively what we cannot do as individuals. So we gotta have money in that pot. And who better to put money in that pot than the ultra wealthy in this country, so that we can help people pursue life, liberty, and everybody's happiness. How about that?
100%.
Let's do that.
100%. Yeah, and I'm just gonna throw this out there because people are gonna hear a lot of misinformation about wealth taxes. You're not gonna hear a lot about wealth taxes, but maybe in a few years, maybe 2024, there'll be some people who are running on wealth taxes. You know what a wealth tax does? It funds things that the working class need. You know what it doesn't do? Stop wealthy people from being wealthy. There ain't no wealth tax that's ever gonna do that. You could take the most radical wealth tax, shoot it full of the super soldier serum. They still build wealth over time. It just slows it a bit. It slows the growth of wealth of people who can buy virtually everything in the world. They can literally buy islands. They can't think of things to buy. They have so much money, and they will still be getting more wealthy. We just won't be suffering as much along the way. That's all it is. But that's just me.
Even take a trip into space.
Yeah.
Jesus, Mary and Joseph. Yes, I'm 100%. Calling them Jesus, Mary, Joseph. Just take a trip into space so they can monk it up there too. I'd rather they just stay down here. We got to deal with planet Earth. Don't go up into the stratosphere making trouble.
Yeah, or go and don't come back. One of the two. But by the way, really fast, that was just what we think about the wealth tax. Representative Bill Pascrell, a Democrat of New Jersey, says, I am very suspect of a wealth tax. I think it's perceived as soak the rich. I don't think it is, but that's how it's perceived. Oh, well, if only there was a way we could fight back against that, representative. People think things are, well, first of all, who thinks it's soak the rich? Is it the rich? I don't think a lot of working class people are like, well, come on, let's not soak the rich now. That's not how working people think. And even if some do, you're a representative. Go on TV, talk to them about it. Killing it while talking about soak the rich is hardly a way you fight back against that if that was what you really wanted to do. And I suspect that it is perhaps not.
That's right. I mean, if some of these members of Congress are more concerned about the everyday people of the nation, they're more concerned about the ultra wealthy than they are about the teacher, the social worker, the Uber driver, the nurses. If they really were more concerned about those types of people than they are about people who are never gonna have to worry about a dime for the rest of their natural lives. And if they have children, their children and children's children and children's children and so on and so forth. But meanwhile, back in the neighborhoods and misunderstood, people are worried about things like paying their rent, their mortgage, their car note, getting the medications that they need. And oh, by the way, just putting food on the table. So how about these folks focus in on that and make that the centering? Let's change the material conditions of the poor, the working poor, and the barely middle class for a change in this country. That's
100%.
Woo, these people make me want to holler. Really.
I agree. Well, feel free. I want to hear it.
Check out the Damage Report podcast each day, wherever you get your podcasts, whether Pocket Casts or Stitcher or iTunes. You can join me as I give you the news and stories you want, with a range of co-hosts and interview guests jumping in on the fun each day. Again, that's the Damage Report, wherever you get your podcasts. And if you get them at iTunes, don't forget to rate and review. Sometimes I'll read them live on the show.